Have you ever looked at a German news headline and just felt your brain switch off? You are definitely not alone. So today, we are going to fix that. We're going to unlock the essential vocabulary of German politics so you can follow the whole conversation with total confidence. I mean, look at this thing. You might see a word like this one and think, yeah, nope, I'm out. And you know what? I get it. A Reddit user actually posted this monster of a word as the reason they just gave up and closed their browser. It's a beast. For a little context, it means the postponement of the repeat of a runoff election for the federal presidency. See? It's a mouthful. But here's the secret to German, and it's a good one. A lot of the time, these giant words are just smaller, simpler words stacked together like Legos. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break it all down, piece by piece, starting with the absolute basics. We'll kick things off with the foundations of the state itself. Then, we'll walk through the halls of power to see who's actually running things. After that, we'll look at the democratic process, how people get into power. And finally, we'll zoom out to see Germany's role on the big world stage. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1, the foundations of the state. Before we can even begin to talk about politics, we have to know what we're talking about, the country itself. And that most basic foundational concept is der Staat. Let's hear that again. Der Staat. One more time. Der Staat. It just means the state or the country, the whole political thing we're talking about. Okay, so every state needs a rule book, right? A document that lays out all the rules. In German, that's called die Verfassung. Again, that's die Verfassung. And one last time, die Verfassung. But here's a really interesting little detail. Germany's constitution isn't usually called die Verfassung. It's known as das Grundgesetz, which literally means the basic law. It was put into place back in 1949 for what was then West Germany, and its absolute number one job is to protect the fundamental rights, or Grundrechte, of every single citizen. So, we've got our state, and we've got its rulebook. But who is actually running the show? Well, that brings us to our next section, where we'll look at the key people and institutions that hold all the power. The group that handles the day-to-day business of running the country is the government, or die Regierung. Let's say it. Die Regierung. Again, die Regierung. This is what we call the executive branch, the folks in charge. Okay, so if the government has to follow the rules, who makes those rules? Well, that is the job of the federal parliament, known as der Bundestag. Let's try it. Der Bundestag. Once more, der Bundestag. And here it is. The Bundestag is often called the very heart of German democracy. And why is that? Because it's the only federal body where the members are directly elected by you, by the people. This is the room where it happens, where national laws are debated, changed, and finally passed. And who's the head of the government? That would be the federal chancellor. The term is der Bundeskanzler for a man. Let's hear it. Der Bundeskanzler. Der Bundeskanzler. And for a woman, it's die Bundeskanzlerin, a title the world got to know very well thanks to Angela Merkel. Now, this is super important. All these roles are kept separate by a core democratic idea called Gewaltenteilung, the separation of powers. As you can see here, it splits power into three branches. You have die Legislative, that's the parliament, which makes the laws. Then there's the Executive, the government, which carries out the laws. And finally, die Judicative, the courts, which interpret the laws. So, we know who holds the power, but how do they even get there? And how does an idea turn into a real law? That brings us right to our third section, the democratic process. The most basic, most fundamental part of any democracy is, of course, the election. In German, it's a simple word, die Wahl. Let's say that one, die Wahl. Again, die Wahl. The whole election process has a few key stages. First up, you have der Wahlkampf, which is the campaign period. Then, on the big day, citizens cast die Stimme, their vote. And after all that, the entire country waits for das Wahlergebnis, the official results. Okay, so the votes are all counted, a government is formed, and now the real work begins. The focus shifts to policy. So, how does an idea actually become a law in Germany? The whole point of politics really is to create laws. And the German word for a law is das Gesetz. Let's try it. Das Gesetz. One more time. Das Gesetz. And the entire process of making laws is called die Gesetzgebung. It all starts when a bill, which is called a Gesetzentwurf, is introduced. That bill then goes to der Bundestag for a lot of debate. And if it manages to pass, it officially becomes das Gesetz, a law. We've built the state, we've filled the holes of power, we've even run an election. So for our last section, let's zoom all the way out and see how Germany fits in with the rest of the world.
Here we've got two sides of the same coin. First, you have die Innenpolitik. Listen, die Innenpolitik. One more, die Innenpolitik. That's domestic policy, everything happening inside the country. The other side is die Außenpolitik. Again, die Außenpolitik. Last time, die Außenpolitik. And that's foreign policy, how Germany deals with everyone else.
Now, when you talk about German foreign policy, there is one organization that is more important than any other. The European Union, or in German, die Europäische Union. Let's try that. Die Europäische Union. Again, die Europäische Union. And this image really captures a core truth of German politics today. You simply cannot talk about the country's Außenpolitik without understanding its central foundational role inside the Europäische Union. The two are just completely connected. So there you have it. We've covered the state, the government, elections, and foreign policy. You now have the basic vocabulary, from das Grundgesetz all the way to der Bundestag, to start making sense of German news with a lot more confidence. The only question left is...